Hello and welcome everyone to the main event this week. I'm Nita Sani and I'm really pleased to be joined by our special guest today, Jo Ellen Grzyb. Hi, Jo Ellen.
Yay, thank you for having me. It's February. Yay, we got the January.
Well, I know, not through Jan. We're in the month of love. It's a special month just because it's my birthday month anyway. But it is the month of love and I'm a bit of a romantic, I believe that, there's a world out there that is full of joy and acceptance and, there to make people happy. So that's what I think.
I'm with you on that one.
Now, I think I might have a title that's not right there. So I'm hoping, can you see that Imposter to Empowered?
No, I see. Oh, yes. That's the wrong title. As she puts on her glasses to see.
I know. Well, I'm sorry to anyone seeing that. That is incorrect. I will make sure that we fix that. But it doesn't. I can change it. Look at me. I'm so clever. Love your world. There we go. Didn't even know I could do that. That's brilliant. Okay, right. They're back in the room. Got the right title up there, and everyone is just settling in, so I think we're okay. So while everyone's settling in, Jo Ellen, I just want to do a little bit of the housekeeping. So for those of you who attend every week, I'm sorry because you know this, but just going to remind everyone that our sessions last for about 30 to 40 minutes. We keep them succinct because we know your time is really precious. We love giving you tidbits that you can take away and apply straight away in your working world. And to ensure that that's the case, we've got a chat box on the right, so please interact. I'm going to do a quick hello just to show you how easy that is. And that could be a question, it could be a comment, or it might be something you want to take out of the live room. Jo Ellen and I are both available outside of these sessions. And we also send you our contact details when we send you today's recording. So that is a quick bit of housekeeping. Don't think I've forgotten anything there, right, Jo Ellen?
Yeah. Good to go.
Good. So the love of workplace, loving where you work, loving your job. We as employers, I think, want everyone to love it as much as we do. We create an environment, but the disconnect between what we intend and what is the experience is anything from, something like 40% of people are unhappy in their workplace. So I thought today's session could be all around how employers and employees, like however you look at it, can improve how they engage and love what they're doing. Because I think some of it can be a choice to an extent, can't it? It could be a mindset.
It's very, very interesting when you asked me to join this one, and why I love it so much is that at the sort of towards the end of last year and certainly the beginning of this year, I've been saying to anyone who listened to me, 2023 is the year of living selfishly. And people kind of, I don't want to be selfish.
Yeah.
And it literally, like days later, an article popped up in the New York Times called Wise Selfishness. And it was just lovely because it ties in perfectly with what we're talking about. That selfishness is not, number one, selflessness, which is what they think the opposite of that. But it doesn't mean that it's self-serving. And that a lot of selfishness is either based on fear or on, sorry, I'm going to get my note. But yeah, that selfishness is motivated by fear and also self-criticism, that we are very self-critical. And so we often make selfish decisions. And they say there's nothing wrong with selfishness. And there's a lot of research around what happens neurologically when we do kind acts, not only to others, but to ourselves.
Well, that's the big thing about today, isn't it? It's creating an environment in a working space, and it's not necessarily a physical working space, which means that we've got to be even more mindful about how we create this environment of love. And, I'm throwing this love word around, but actually it is possible to absolutely love what you do. You might not love all of it. And as an employer, you might not love every element of your employees, but there are going to be shades of love in what you do. And it's about how you can celebrate those more, bring those to life more. So we've got 3 areas that we're going to be talking about. today, and we're already getting some activity in the chat box. Helen says, hi, Helen. Oh, we've already got a question from Jenny, who says, is that selfishness or having self-esteem? Let's cover that off before we go into some of the detail.
Well, for me, I think as a therapist, I know that a lot of people come in feeling as though they're not doing enough. And so much of it is that they don't have self-esteem, that they have, they put themselves second, third, fourth, fifth. And there's a gap between what we should be doing for our self-care. Yeah. And I do think that requires a sense of, I am loving myself because I am worth being loved.
And when you come with that language of love, whether it's self-love, loving your team, loving your work, loving your working environment, whichever relationship you're applying that approach to, if you apply that approach a bit like the oxygen, get yourself right before you give it to somebody else. If everyone's doing that, then everyone's going to be raising that bar of how happy, engaged, how much they love what they do. Yeah. So I think you're right, Jenny. It's the high esteem is what allows you to recognize it, not as selfish in the negative sense, but selfish in the sense of replenishing the vessel.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, one of the areas we're going to be talking about is self-love, creating the balance. And I talk a lot about the triangle, the holistic triangle, self, work, loved ones, how you get that balance. So we're going to look a little bit at love languages in the workplace. We're going to be looking at self-love and the balance of how you bring internal balance into your working world, which we know can be very demanding. And then we're going to be talking about the all for one and one for all love of diversity, love of nurturing and celebrating differences, encouraging people to be their authentic selves, and making the workplace an environment where everyone feels like they belong. Because that's when love really shines. When you feel like you belong, then the love just flows, doesn't it?
Well, it's interesting. I have to blow your horn for you because we've just had a new hire from the main group who's starting in a few weeks. And she was great because she said, all the candidates are great, but the person we hired said, I didn't know there was a role and an organization like yours where she could feel the passion that we had. And she said, I really want to feel passionate about my work. And it was like, ooh, yes, we want that. We encourage it. And to me, that was such a wonderful statement. It's like, yes, you have the job.
Yeah. We are matchmakers, and we may not match in the relationship or the romantic relationship world, but we match in the business relationship world. And the underlying feeling of, you're my type of people. Yeah. That is so powerful. And, it's one of the reasons I joined the main group 25 years ago and then bought the company out 10 years ago, because we just spoke the same language. I was so proud of the way, we do things, and hopefully the positive footprints we leave just made me feel just fulfilled. So I'm really glad to hear that, Jo Ellen, and thank you for sharing that. So I'm so interested in love languages because, we're all in, some form of, short-term, medium-term, long-term relationship. And, the differences of how people feel unfulfilled got me to looking at, well, why is it that I feel this way, my other half feels that way? And I looked at it initially from a life and partnership approach. But then when we were thinking about today, I thought, right, let me look up, I'd actually defined work love languages. Turns out people have created them before. So that was a bit of someone's already done it. But the best ideas are the simple ones. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, which, Jo Ellen, I think you said that's your one.
Top one, acknowledgement, I think, is, for me, being able to just say to people the day-to-day thank you, not for the above and beyond that you almost expect, but it's that day-to-day acknowledgement is such a way to connect with other people, because it means you've paid attention, you've seen what they've done, you see the impact that it has on the people around them or the work. And that's even when somebody makes a mistake. You're still acknowledging what's been happening. So that's my top one. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. So in a work environment, that would look like feedback. So I always think feedback starts with an induction conversation. We are an environment of continual improvement and self-awareness and self-improvement. So I will give you feedback and coaching. How do you like to receive that feedback? Would you like it away in a room? Or would you be happy for me to give you a shout out? Hey guys, so-and-so just did this, and get a feel for that person's, the way they'd like to receive that.
Yes.
Yeah. But also mentoring, actually having a buddy or a senior person. You can even have cross mentoring, can't you, where somebody with less experience mentors somebody with more years.
It's called reverse mentoring. Yes.
Reverse mentoring, that's it. So, and it's communication, isn't it? It's remembering to look up and look out and connect, really, in a different way. And I think what's so powerful about these love languages is that you can actually start building it into inductions and say, tell me, what do you really value about when you're managed well? What did you see as, being managed well? And if the best time would have been induction, the next best time is now. How do you like to be supported? Can you hear that noise? That's my dog. Do you mind if I quickly let him in the room? He's about to show me a love language of breaking my door. There we go. Oh, and he brought me a present. Apologies. So I was just saying that it'd be really good to talk it through and ask people how they like to receive feedback or what's important to them. Is it that one-to-one time? Is it a shout out on the floor? The next love language is quality time. So that's pretty obvious in a relationship. Date night, switching off the TV, having a chat, dinner, candlelit dinner, all that kind of thing. But how would you relate that to a workplace environment?
Well, for me, it can be anything. It could be weekly meetings. Yeah. We're doing the company lunch and learn, just new things that are happening in the company. It can be, the home team goes out for lunch together every once in a while. Yeah. It's also just taking the time rather than feeling that you're rushing through a meeting or you're rushing through a session with someone. If they've asked for one-to-one or you've initiated a one-to-one, don't rush it. Give the time, take the time. Don't think, I'll do that 20 minutes in the diary. Yeah. Actually build some time around it so that people don't feel rushed and don't feel as though they can't say what they need to say. So a lot of that too, in the quality time, is around, let's not worry about consequences. I think sometimes people hold back because they're concerned about consequences. If you give people time.
What they say. Is that what you mean?
I think that if they say something, they might be punished. Yeah. Black mark against them. But my experience is always, if you give people time, they will tell you what's on their mind.
Yeah.
You give them the space.
Yeah. And I have to say that one of the things I had to learn early on was to put my phone away, because it's not that I wanted to check my phone, but it was almost like a fidget, a habit of having my phone in my hand, flipping it around. It just showed lack of presence. Yes. And I never intended it. So, leave the phones in the bags, put them at the other end of the room. Some of the things I know, because everyone's busy, everyone is, set to time. Give yourself that extra 5 minutes before and after a meeting so that you've got room to let it run over. These are things I've had to learn myself over the years. And sometimes, maybe half an hour every week might not work for somebody. Maybe they prefer an hour every other week. Yeah. Or like there's always time. Again, not everyone wants to work every hour outside of work, but you could always say, look, it feels like there's more. Shall we grab a coffee after work? So there are times, as you said, it's the quality and it's also the availability. So workplace bonding is the way we look at quality time. And again, I think the beauty of these gifts of love and connecting is that it can start now. There's never a better time. We could have a theme, this is the month of love. Hey, these are the ways we can do this. Choose one. Let's have some fun with it. The next one is receiving gifts. So somebody that likes to give and receive gifts. So this is quite an interesting one. The way this is described in a workplace environment is new opportunities. So actually acknowledging that somebody has the ability to do something else and therefore raises the bar for them and what they can deliver, or giving people new projects or challenges.
Well, and this is, we talked about this before we went live, is that for me, second on my list is autonomy. And I think that is around giving people gifts. It's giving them the ability to make the decisions, to know that if they make a mistake, it's fine. It will be rectified somehow. You know, it's not going to bring the company down.
No.
So for me, allowing people to take on a project, see it till the end, is a great way to show love.
Yeah. It shows trust, doesn't it? Trust and confidence. So that is so powerful in itself. Actually, I meant to say, I didn't mention our lovely poll that we have today before I go into the final 2 love languages. We have a question on whether you feel your working environment does show enough love to its people. We've got a real split here. We've got a third saying, 37% saying a definite no, 37% saying not sure, and 25% saying yeah. So a mix. Oh, and we've just got another one in the not sure. So actually, not sure is the biggest score there. So I think actually, what could be really powerful is doing an engagement, asking this question out to your people, doing an anonymous survey, and say, look, it's February. We want to know how you feel. Do you feel that we show you enough love? And you can even use these affirmations. Do you get enough feedback? Do you get enough time to bond with your team? And do we give you enough opportunities? The next one is active service. So reflecting that into a working environment, perhaps giving support, giving people time to train them, to coach them, to help them grow, or maybe help them through a difficult time.
I mean, this comes to me under well-being as well, that when we look after people, that's a way of service. And I connected it with purpose. I think when you have a sense of purpose, if you can find something to align your personal values and purpose with your organization, that means you are in service to yourself and to your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. The support of, making people feel that they're held by something. They will then fly higher if they know they've got that safety support underneath them.
Lovely message from Susan. Appraisal is important to support people to flourish. 100%.
Yeah. 100%. And what I love about appraisals is that they can have so many formats. And I think we spoke about this in some previous webinars, and actually links into the final love language, which is, in the romantic relationship world, it's about physical touch. In the working relationship world, I would say it's about encouraging touch points, having times to connect. And I think the beauty of appraisals is that real immersion into someone's world, but it doesn't have to be once a year. It doesn't have to be focusing just on negatives. It could be a more holistic and natural flow of appraising.
Well, it is the classic is that don't look at the one time a year. That's almost like a summary. And are we all in agreement with that summary and where we're going? But it's the day-to-day performance management where you, again, knowing that you are not so much scrutinized, is that someone is aware of what you're doing and supports it, encourages it, makes tweaks here and there with your collaboration, because that's one of the other words on my list is around collaboration. And to me, that's a touch point.
Yes.
It's not just messages from on high, but, I think we talked about this, that before Christmas, we had a home team brainstorm day where we just all were in a room writing on the walls and looking at where the future of the company is and what needed to change and all of that. So everyone was in on it. It wasn't just Robin and myself going, oh, I think this is what we should be doing. Yeah. It actually came from the team.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay, who's going to do what and what needs to be addressed and things like that. It was so much easier too.
Absolutely. We are not an island, right? Our business isn't a democracy, but it's actually the sum of every individual in the organization. That's what helps it flourish. And so I think that what I love about and love really does make the world go round. You put a bit of love there, it instills a bit of love in someone else, and it grows and grows. And I think in a working environment, if we can nurture that, or just create a safe space where people can be open about what floats their boat, how they like to be supported, how they like to give support, we can almost start putting people into really dynamic and impactful roles.
Yeah.
And actually, like a mental health first aider or a buddy, like, you know, somebody when they start putting them with somebody who just wants to get out there and help people. So I just think this is so powerful, and I just thought it'd be a really different way of looking at things. So for those who never knew what love languages, read up on them. Even better, work love languages. I think it's the answer to everything. I'm very excited by it. I want to incorporate it into our world a lot more. You know, I love a statistic, and a lot of people, when I was looking at statistics, was around work-life balance, and the fact that, you know, the next thing we're talking about is creating the balance and thinking about how people feel valued and loved. And apparently 41% of workers were attracted to their roles because of the work-life balance. Only 30% chose salary as their motivation. So straight away, it's, you know, it's not just about the money. We think about, like, Jo Ellen, you just look to hire somebody. You know, we know from a salary perspective, how hard it is to match salary demands at the moment. The market is really, you know, really demanding. People are demanding high salaries, but actually being supported, being given the promise of, you know what, we're going to look after you holistically. We're not just going to give you a great salary. We're also going to make sure that you get that time with your loved ones. We're also going to improve. We're going to help you improve yourself. So we're going to train you. We're going to give you an allowance to go and work on self-care, or we put on lunch and learns, but not just about the skills you need for the business, but how to manage stress, or how to communicate, you know, how to, you know, do something that's going to help yourself. And actually, I think our webinars are a really good way of not just looking at the skills required in an organization, but how to feel better in an organization, how to help your people feel better. So feel free to send the links for these to people in your world that you want to share the love with as well. And, you know, the work-life balance, even though we've got remote working, if anything, that's extended working hours. And that actually, long hours increases depression, increases anxiety, increases irritability. So if you're looking at the flip side of showing love, I think it's important for employers to look at their working worlds and think about, are they actually helping employees to get that balance? And I thought it'd be good to cover that, if we could talk about that.
Because I think that for a lot of people, remote working opened things up, and if they were disciplined with their work as well, with their workplace, didn't extend the hours. I think there was an expectation that somehow you were home, you could just, you know, you're missing out the commute, you could do more. We still have contracted hours. We do not, I mean, yes, occasionally above and beyond, but I do get cross when people stay late, and whether they're staying late at home or they're staying late in the office, because it's not good. I've had to learn it over the years myself. Turn the computer off, walk out of the bedroom.
It's interesting what you said about businesses expected it. I don't think that's how it started. I think it started as people feeling like, okay, you know what, I'm not commuting, I'll jump in 10 minutes early, I'll stay 10 minutes late. But then that became 20 minutes. Then it became, well, I might as well do the whole of my commute because that's my morning routine. And the self-care, that actually, a lot of people use that commute for self-care. It just flew out the window, but then it set a precedent.
Yes.
And this is what I think organizations, to their fault, are very good at. Unspoken precedents that just becomes, you know, like we have presenteeism. If anything, as you said, people are sitting there. I heard about people moving their mouses to show that I mean, seriously, if somebody's working in an environment like that, everyone's got to rethink how they measure value and, you know, what's great in their world. So I think really thinking about this month, again, asking your people, do they feel they've got the balance? And if they haven't, Is it self-discipline? Is it workload? Because you know what, Jo Ellen, on occasion, there's going to be a deadline, right? There's going to be a deadline that we have to get that thing done by tomorrow. In which case, we're going to say, listen, guys, can everyone give us 2 hours, but we'll give you 2 hours back at the end of the week or something. You know, it's like a fair exchange. But that's not the same as people just sitting at their desks, just, you know, just being there because they feel like they have to. So it's finding that balance. We've got a comment from Liz. So Liz says, from someone who used to do 12 hours in an office environment several days a week, the switch to home working didn't help. Although I did leave that role due to the mad hours, learning the balance is hard but possible. It really is. And it comes back to self-love.
And it really, I mean, I'm a business owner, and it's very easy, particularly off the back of the pandemic, when a lot of us, you know, I saw my company sort of, we dropped 95% in the first few months, and we had to crawl back up. So there was a lot of hands to the pump, and let's just work every hour that it was possible to work.
Yeah.
And we're healthy again. So I had to learn to stop. Okay, I did that. I needed to do that. Everybody needed to do that. Now we have to, if you're going to work from home, I do not expect you to be at your computer. If you need to go and play games on your phone, or what I do is I take a break in the day. I'm trying to learn Greek, and I have my lesson that I take, and I do it separate. It changes the dynamic of my brain. And that's what you need to be doing. Changing things up and down, doing a load of laundry, picking the kids up from school, whatever it might be. That helps the balance. Making your tea at lunchtime so that you don't have to do it at the end of the day and it's done. There are so many things that we could do rather than thinking, I'm being paid, I need to sit at my desk. You do not. You can find a way to get the work that you know, the targets that you need to meet. And a lot of that comes to the communication that you have with your employees and your employer.
Yeah. I was just going to say I think it all comes down to clarity. And what I would say about Liz's comment about those hours is that it is unsustainable. You walked away from that role. And I guess my question to that would be, you know, sometimes those hours come from an expectation from a boss or somebody that isn't in a healthy place themselves, and they want to take everyone down with them. You know, it's that, you know, mindset of there's only one way. And it's kind of unpacking it into, well, what is important to you? Because, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a culture. It's, you know, and it can move on. Go.
I've got it on my thing. It's like, define your company culture for yourself. What is it? Is it that there is the expectation that you're going to work 12 hours a day? I mean, I know this was one of my first jobs in the UK was with a performing arts company, and you do a lot of extra hours because you're going to performances or you're meeting clients or whatever. But when I needed an assistant, someone who sat in, one of the senior people sat in on the interviews, and basically said to everyone, well, we expect you to work late and there's no overtime. And I just thought, no, that's not, it's fine if I make that choice as the head of the department, but I'm not expecting that of my people with no compensation. But if your culture, and I left that organization after not a very long time because I didn't like the culture of the organization. And I think that sometimes, because there are good jobs out there, that you may say, all right, it's worth it for me to take a drop in salary or something else because the culture of this company fits who I am and what I am and will respect something about me. And it is self-preservation, but we shouldn't be in a place in our working lives where it's just about self-preservation. So for me, it is assessing your company culture and how you fit into that. Or if the company culture as a whole is actually antithetical to something in you, is your team culture working?
Yeah.
Is that something that you can kind of create a bubble where you enjoy the work, you enjoy your colleagues, you feel satisfaction, and you may just say, you know, the overall culture isn't great, but my team works well and I work well with it.
And that's what I think this is about, is it's doing an audit. And I think it's auditing your career world and looking at the cultural alignment. We do a lot of sessions with our clients around defining culture, because actually, how can you replicate something, or how can you encourage it or celebrate it if you haven't actually established what it looks like, feels like, and what words and behaviors define that? So it could be that you've got a great culture, but one person comes in and they're not quite aligned, and how do you explain? You can't just say, hey, you need to fit into our culture. But actually, for us, for example, greatness, integrity, clarity, and energy, we talk about what do these look like? So how does somebody demonstrate greatness to their internal team? How do we demonstrate that to a client? How do we demonstrate that to a candidate? How do we demonstrate that in training? You know, it's going to have an impact in a different way for different relationships, but with the same intentions. And I think getting that audit done of, and I've loved what you said about a culture within a culture, because actually it may be that you decide to stay because 90% of your time is with your bubble, and even though the broader culture may not align, it may only be 10%, and you think, actually, you know what, I can live with that.
I can live with that. Yeah.
You know, the other bit is your family, and actually the same audit you do in your career, your balance of time between yourself and your career. Think about what you give your family, and we don't change our dynamic, but we do think about how the work we do at work impacts our family life. The work we do on ourselves impacts our family life, and they're all connected, aren't they? So I think it's like anything. Don't just work in your life, work on your life.
Yeah.
And take that time to reflect. You know, I do a lot of timetabling at work. I'm trying to do some personal timetabling, you know, going for a walk, seeing my mum, going to the gym sometimes, whatever it is, whatever is personal. I think the biggest lesson in this, you know, triangle, the holistic triangle, is that no matter where you are, by just thinking about it and looking at it, you'll start to do some better habits. And actually, you can apply that to your people. How are you doing? Where are you feeling stretched? Where are you feeling good? How can we help you get that balance? Because if we're looking at these statistics, people that feel seen holistically, leaders that lead holistically, will have real, engaged, loyal people who will just give their everything, you know. Great. Right, and I'm going to look at the poll again. I'm going to see where we are with this. So, okay. So currently, yes and not sure are equal at 36%, and no is at 27%. So that's improved a bit. So that's good to see. And you know what? If anyone has any comments about how, especially the 36% that said yes, tell us how. Give us some ideas of what's happening in your world that shows love to its people. I'd be really interested to see what comes up in the chat box. So the next section that we wanted to cover today is the love of diversity, all for one and one for all. And you know, Jo Ellen, this is a whole webinar on its own. I know
it really is.
The training that we do around equality, diversity, and belonging is days. You just couldn't get deep enough. But if we were going to do a whistle stop of what employers should be thinking about and considering to really bring back, or to bring the love for everyone, where do you feel that starts?
Well, I think it starts with our connectedness. When someone is different or different from us, it's like we often do the, self-protection, the selfishness in a way. Ooh, they're different from me. Is that going to work out? As opposed to, where are we connected? How are we the same? Where are we aligned as human beings? And making that extra effort for what is basically, I would call, social connectedness.
Yeah.
And that it's like stepping out of your, I hate using the term comfort zone, maybe expanding your comfort zone to say, what else can I embrace? Who can embrace me? I think that we have a picture of what the people around us, whereas there are so many differences. It isn't just around diversity. It's levels of diversity. And I think that we can get very complacent in, or familiar or comfortable without saying, let's get some spice in our lives.
Yeah. What you said about connectivity, actually, we all become wallpaper to each other a little bit, right? It's like we see the front, but we have no idea that there's a whole living being inside. And that, if we don't know each other in that intimate way of understanding backgrounds, what's important to people, some of it is about diversity, some of it is just about getting to know the person, which then brings the diversity understanding.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Actually, if we have an environment of curiosity, an environment of acceptance, and an environment of growth,
yes,
all of these behaviors will just naturally start to flow. So I feel like there's two halves of this section. One is almost like the HR book on how to promote diversity and equality, and things like unconscious bias training, promoting pay equity, things like that. And I think actually a lot of our audience probably know all of that. What I'd love to bring to life are some of the practical ways that we can go from a list of do's and don'ts to actually how can diversity and connectivity flourish in a working environment.
Well, Helen's left us another message. I heard a lovely statement. Don't judge, be curious.
Yes.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
That gives me goosebumps,
I have just the simplest thing is just talk to others. I am extremely shy. Now, you wouldn't know that from coming to this, but I am, and I'm also an introvert who's learned how to be extrovert. But if I had my druthers, all those druthers, I'd probably be, tucked away somewhere and only come out every once in a while and be a writer. But I love this work so much that I have overcome a lot of my shyness and but I remember being called aloof when I was younger, and that really stung because I thought, I'm not aloof, I'm just terrified.
Yeah.
And I took that into a job that I had where people kept talking about this one person. Oh, she doesn't talk to anybody. And she did. She came into work like this. And I finally thought, actually, she's probably like how I used to be. And I tapped, this is the days when you had your own office or a cubicle, not necessarily as open plan as we do. And I just tapped on her door and she was so shocked. And I just said, I just want to say good morning. I'm making coffee. Would you like anything? No, it's all right. But I did it every day. And eventually we became friends. I found out that she'd had breast cancer while she was working there. No one knew anything about this because they weren't willing to take that extra step because she was aloof. And I think sometimes when we take a look, if there's anyone in your workplace that you have put into a box, and is there one little gesture that you could make, one generous gesture, one small thing that could just break a barrier that you've either unconsciously created or maybe they've unconsciously created as well.
I think that is so powerful. It's lifting the lid on someone's world, isn't it? And I love what you said about you didn't just knock on once. And when she said no, you left it. You actually went every day. And it was that trust and confidence that was built just by you turning up and being reliable and being authentic that allowed her to feel comfortable. And I tell you what I think would be a really nice thing, and I know companies that have done this, and this is one of the things we recommend when we're training diversity and inclusivity in an organization, is ask each of the people in your team, or ideally, let's have this happen throughout the organization, but what are important dates to you? What do you like to celebrate? And then you can start, almost like the kid, when kids are at school, they do, what do they do? They have a show and tell, I think they call it.
Yeah.
Bring something along that you want to talk about. Well, in a working environment, it could be, I know that probably the first thing I remember, obviously went to school 40 odd years ago and up to about 30 years ago. But anyway, we had Diwali was one of the non-Christian days that were celebrated. Even though I'm not a Hindu, where I'm a Sikh, we understand about Diwali. But it was only through actually hearing about it at school that I understood about it. Then came the sweets, then came the fireworks. And now the whole world really talks about Diwali, which means that had we not started 30, 40 years ago to acknowledge it, it wouldn't have become a culture, a norm for our society. And that, I feel, is growing more and more, because what I love about London is the melting pot we are of cultures, and how much that gives us back. So create a calendar of holidays, create a show and tell style. You know, so-and-so's going to talk about their favorite food, or
food.
Bring food in. Yeah.
I've been doing some work with a Black Lives group that I'm part of. We go into schools, particularly I live in a primarily white Suffolk. It's white. The schools are mostly white, with about 4% multicultural population. Yeah. And one of the schools, we've run these affinity groups just for the minority students, and they say what's been happening, and we're working with the schools to correct that. But one of the things that's come up is, let's share food. Let's share the different cultures where we came from. If I've come from Korea, or if I've come from Jamaica, I've come from Nigeria, let's have a food exchange. So we're planning that with one of the schools. It's very exciting that that's happening.
It's like bake sales that's work, right? Everyone brings in their version of their baked goods. I think, you know, open that out. As you said, everyone loves to eat, and just understanding what people's backgrounds are, and even asking somebody, open up your childhood to us, open up the things you want to tell us about your culture, where you're from, your journey, anything. And it might be for a company day out, it might be for a training session, let's get to know each other better, you know, anything. But just always try and bring the angle of diversity and inclusivity into it. Again, I think if we don't measure it and don't make an effort to do it, we won't show that it matters. So I think it's through that we nurture acceptance, and we nurture the understanding of people, and just celebrating people and their cultures, and all, you know, little thing. My husband is making our first Ethiopian dish. We follow Gusto, and they have such a nice range of world dishes. And, you know, I'm sure that I must have come across somebody from Ethiopia through my working years. Never actually took the time to understand what that means in terms of how they live, so connect, talk, share, and just start now, you know. And it doesn't have to be all encompassing, because you can actually even create a diversity champion in your organization. And as you said, Jo Ellen, everyone's ideas that come together, it's easier if, like you said, on your brainstorm day, everyone had a pen and an idea. Bring your people together for how to bring this to life, and I think it would be so powerful. I can't believe that we are nearly at the end. I think we've got. Usually I check the time a couple of times. I haven't even checked the time today.
No, I just suddenly looked and thought, oh, curtain's going to come down any minute now.
I know. Well, I just, you know, just want to say thank you, Jo Ellen, and thank you to everyone who's come along today, who's connected, who's given us their thoughts. And what I would say is, let's get some of today's ideas into place, even if you just do one thing, you know,
one little thing.
Yeah, just get that in. And I'm definitely going to take this back to my team as well. And let's share the love and grow the love.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, Jo Ellen, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at the next main event very soon. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.